Hello everyone, welcome to this presentation where we'll be reviewing the Autoscholar Advisor system. So we'll want first to go on over to this URL, autoscholar.institutioncode, so UKZN in this case, .ac.za, and then you log in using this form. So using your staff credentials, your regular institution's credentials, you would supply those details up here, and then you'd specify the course code. So we are looking now specifically at the courseView Connect component. So to get that started, we need to specify the course code of interest. So this is a course that I taught, and so just clicking login will cause the data for that course to load up, and we'll be able to review the courseView components there. So that's the kind of screen you get, and first up we'll get some description about what courseView Connect involves, and you can read all that at your leisure. I'm going on over to the resources here, so that will take a couple of seconds to load. So it's pulling from the name of the course, so the system does go and look up that course and the name of that course and uses it to find some lecture notes, so that's just useful for us as lecturers. And there are also some notes that will load up here on the practice of teaching. So if you go down to the bottom, you'll find after a couple of seconds you'll get some notes on the practice of teaching as well. So these are general resources, resources for the course and resources for developing as a lecturer as well. And we'll go over to the statistics for this course. So here we've got the historical performance on this course. So we can see over the past 5 years the performance. So this mean has been bouncing around between 50 and 60, and then the pass rate has been varying over time as well. And these are the results before the supplementary exam. And if we look at after the supplementary exam, you'll see these averages are going up a bit. And so we can see the mean and pass rate over time after the supplementary exam as well as before the supplementary exam. So those are your basic statistics, mean and pass rate, and the number of students taking the course, and those kinds of things. So that's the first part of looking at the statistics. Then if we go on over down here to peer courses and we click this button, it's going to take a few seconds to load up for us the other courses taken by students who are taking this course, and it will also look at the courses previously taken by students who are currently in this course. So that may take a good few seconds to load up. So I'm just going to pause the video here. Okay, so the courses are loaded up, and you'll see first it's showing us the courses that were taken by students who took this course currently. So in the years prior to this course, what were the students doing? And so these are the courses it's detected. So I haven't specified these courses anywhere. Purely by reading the records of the students, it's picked up that these are relevant courses. And then it's also showing us the courses that are taken at the same time as this course. So you'll see this list of courses, and if you teach in this program, you'll recognize that these courses are typically taken at the same time as this course. And so the number that's shown here is the Pearson R coefficient, well, 100 times that coefficient. So this number tells us how closely two courses are correlated. So in essence, we get the list of students that take both these courses, and then we plot the one mark against the other mark, and so we get a scatter across all the students. And so that number gives us an indication of how closely two things are related. So we expect to see a good correlation between courses that are operated in a similar way and test similar material. So typically numbers of at least 50 indicate a fairly strong correlation. Numbers even as low as 45 do indicate some correlation. So we can see here this 4DC course correlates to some extent with these ones, perhaps not so much with this course. And so we can get some sense for does that course match what's happening in the other courses. This number doesn't relate to anything like the pass rate or the mean. It's just telling us how correlated these courses are. So the means of these courses may be totally different, but this number tells us whether the strong students in one course are the strong students in the other course. Excuse me, and so on. So if we look at the prior courses, right, so these are the peer courses, looking at the courses taken prior to that semester of this course, we can see some stronger correlations here. So this is the course of interest, and we can see some fairly strong correlations with our third year courses. So this is a fourth year course, and we've got fairly good correlations there. So this is an indication that we could use this course, we could use these earlier courses to predict the likelihood of a student passing or failing this course. So the correlation extent of a course gives us some indication of how this course stacks up to its peers and its priors. Okay, so moving on, under registration checks, we would like some indication of whether this course, whether the students that are registering for this course have performed in their prerequisite courses. So I'm just listing here as a comma separated list some fourth year courses. So I'm also going to add another course here. Let's just say comma ENCH3PO. So we want to just check that before attempting this course that our students have completed this course. So we just say load data, and that's going to take a good few seconds to load up. Okay, so that's loaded, and we can see here that the system is saying there are some potential registration issues on this course. So this student hasn't passed this 3TH course, and there's no result on 3PO. So the student probably should not be taking this course. Then these marks are low. So on this 3PO course, perhaps these students should now deregister. They haven't passed 3PO like they should have in order to continue with the 4RT. And there are some students who just appear not to have completed this course. So we can page through and identify which students possibly have an issue. Here's another student who hasn't passed either one of the prerequisites. So possibly the student should not continue with the registration on this course. The student doesn't have the prerequisite knowledge or doesn't have it to a great enough extent. So like this, we can pick up all these kinds of issues, and especially if we are looking at this in the second semester. Actually, we are looking in the second semester now, and this is a first semester course. So these are students that actually have already completed the course, and we can think retrospectively, should the student have gone into this course in the first place? And to answer that a little better, there are further results if you page down here. So it's showing us the result that a student got and what the results were in those previous courses. So let's take that issue. Where was that student? Let's find the student. So up here in these tables, you can use that search bar. And actually, the student has performed fairly well on this course, even though these earlier courses, this was the first attempt by the student. So the student didn't do so well the first time around. Oh no, sorry, that's correct as it is. So the student didn't do well on these two courses, did did pass this course and managed to pass the 4th-year course. So this student seems to have been granted a concession to take this course, and that's been a successful concession. But these are the sorts of things we'd want to check, right? We'd want to load up the prior courses, the courses that should be prior to undertaking this course, to identify potential issues, and then we can think about granting concessions, especially in the light of data that might currently be available about concessions that have been granted. So that's some of what you can do in terms of the course data. Then switching on over to assessments, we can look at in a course how students have performed in each of the assessments associated with that course. So in the 3 tests, and actually this is an assignment. So we have 2 tests on this course, and then it's just in the university database they record that assignment result as a test 3. So there's a bit of misnaming, and you may have to use your knowledge about the course to fill in the gaps. But anyway, you can review means and averages and so on. And then you can also look at the performance on a per student basis. So you've got for each student the performance on all those things. Yeah, you can look at the standard deviation among the students' marks as well. So the mean across their various courses is listed here. Okay, so further to the student information, we can also look at the these assessments. So remember, all this is under the assessments tab. So far we've looked at the various assessments written. Now we can also look at have we been releasing those assessments on time? So if we are planning to have an assessment on a course, we would first choose the type of assessment. So we get this list from the university database. This is how they store these assessment codes. So we may have to apply some other labeling about what the assessment actually is. But anyway, there's an assessment there, and then we can give it a more descriptive name here. So if it's a test or an assignment or something, we can give it a better name here. And then we can specify the date on which the assessment must be completed. So the student must complete this assessment and hand it in. So for instance, the student might write a test on a particular date, or hand in an assignment on a date, and so on. So we list that assessment date there. And then on the left here, the system is reminding us that, well, we've already written this one and we did release the results. So the system looks on the database for records relating to that assessment. It finds, yes, the results have been released, so this is fine. And then here I just added in a dummy test to look at what if we list a completed assessment, but we haven't released the results. So the system does pick up the results are not there on the system, and then it notifies us, hey, this assessment has been written, but you haven't released the results as yet. And then here's more dummy data. This course is already ended, but I just added this assessment. So it says this is still to be written, so you're still in the green there. And then once it's written, it will start tracking whether or not we've uploaded the results there. So that's just for scheduling our assessments. That's it. And then looking at students, we want to identify those students that may be at risk. So we click on that button under student ranking, and it may take a couple of minutes to spider through the database, and it's going to look at multiple courses in all the students currently registered on this course. And so it's going to pick up which students seem to be struggling overall. And so we have this list of possibly at-risk students here, and it's looking at the number of courses undertaken by a student, and it's looking at how many of those courses the student has actually passed. So it estimates some kind of a pass rate, but it's really just 3/7 here. and then it's looking at the mean results by the student across those 7 courses, and it also looks at the mean for the whole class. So this is the mean marked by the student, and then among the other students, what were their mean marks, and then it Z normalizes that. So it tells you how many standard deviations the student was away from the mean for the class. So in a sense, this number tells us where the student is sitting relative to the mean of the class. So this student is well below. This is more than a standard deviation below the mean. So we could order this. I forgot to say, you can order a column just by clicking on these headings up here. So these students are really at the bottom in terms of progressing, and we can page through here, and or you can just order it differently. So this student has the highest mean relative to the mean by that class, and you can see a relatively high mean in terms of the absolute value as well. So we can get student rankings like that, and of course we can use that as an index towards determining which students are possibly at risk of performing poorly, and which students are possibly doing pretty well. So that gives us a list that we can think about, perhaps some counseling for these students, maybe even pairing up the strong performers with the performers who may need some support. So that's one thing. The other thing is, if you click on any student here, and let's order this way again. So the system is also auto-generating text for a possible email to a student. So it's saying here, dear student's name, I'm an AI watching over this class. I'm concerned about your progress, and this is how you've been performing in the assessments in this course. And then in your previous courses, this was your performance. And so have you tried making contact with the advisors? If there are academic issues you want to discuss, please schedule a meeting with me, and so on. So the text for this, if your institution has integrated an email address, you can just click send message. You can edit this and then click send message, and the student gets that message, and then you would follow up and try and counsel that student on to a better trajectory. So for any student, the moment you choose a student here, it's going to load up all that student's data. So you can look through all the raw data for each student here, and you can also get a similar view down here. So again, you can select a student, and it will show you what that student has been registering for, and how that student has been doing in all the courses. So there's a bit more detail here if you want to know whether this was a sub-exam or a main exam, or basically the entire record is here. So this tab is all about your students and figuring out which students need better support and so on. Moving on to attendance. Whenever we have some event in class, and it can be as frequent as a lecture or as infrequent as perhaps a field trip, sadly, you can register an event here. So you say event type, you choose your event type, and then these numbers, you can't really do anything here, but you set the date of that event, so you can choose this in advance. Not really necessary. You can do it at the event itself. So if you just say here add event, then it's going to add that to the events list, and it's going to give you an event ID and an attendance pin. So you would basically say to the people who are supposed to attend this event, please use this code and this pin to register yourself for this event. And so when the student goes over to the student view, and that's a totally different thing to this. So the students will have their own student view, and part of that student view will be a registration item. So the student would enter the code and the PIN here. So the idea is that during the event, like a lecture, you would just announce, okay, it's time for you to go and register quickly. So you give them the code and the PIN. They can hop on their cell phone and enter the code and the PIN, and then about a minute later, you can no longer enter this. So you can register in a short time period, and obviously that's just to minimize people sharing these codes with those who have not attended that event. And there are lots of ways to improve the security. So you can do a spot check. You can go over to your attendee statistics, and it would show you who's attended that event. So here I haven't put any data, but it would show a graph of the attendance statistics, how many people are attending as you go later in the semester. It will show your students. It will show how many of the events a particular student has attended, and hence the attendance rate by that student. So eventually we can, if a student comes for counseling, we can just quickly look up here how often that student is attending all their events on their courses. So that's the attendance component of this course view. So there are other things you can do. You can contact a student. You can just select a student and send a message. Similarly, for a colleague, you can use that form. And there's no real reason to do this. You can just use your email client. But anyway, it's all integrated in this course view. So those are the basics of course view. There are other views planned for other components of the Autoscholar. In particular, there's this thing called Student View, which will be released soon. But hopefully this course view is a useful thing for teaching our courses right now.